Alright, so now we're going to be finding the standard deviation for group data. So I am going to go ahead, even though they have already given us the tables on our calculator, on our page, I am going to go ahead and put these in our calculator because the second half we're going to need them anyway, so I am going to go ahead and put all the data in here. So just a reminder for you how we do this. I go to Stat and then hit 1 for Edit, and I'm going to put my X values in list 1. All right, so in list 2, what I'm actually putting, the F indicates that this is frequency. So it's like they've done a frequency distribution and they've already tallied everything, and there were 11 data values that came out to 0, and 21 appeared 20 times, and 2 appeared 8 times. So these are the frequencies. All right, so the next column over, they already did this for us. They did X times F, but I'm just as a reminder to you, if you go up to L3, actually highlight the L3 and tell it you want to multiply list 1 times list 2, because I want my X times my F. It'll do that for you, so I can do second 1, puts an L1 down here, times second 2, the L2, so L1 times L2, and I should get exactly what this column filled in. Okay, so now they want me to find the mean of the group data. So now if I were doing this by hand, you want to sum this column. Well, they said there was 50, but the other day it said there were 10 and there were actually 11. So let's just sum it real quick to be sure. The sum of this column, 20 and 16 is 36. Oh wait, that 50, sorry. It says this is 50, the frequency is 50. So that's 31, 39, 46, 47, 50. So that's true. There are 50 children chosen at random. Then I need to sum this column as well. So 20, 36, 24. So, and then the next thing that you're going to do is you are going to divide. So the formula is technically the sum of X of F divided by the sum of the frequencies. Do I add that right? 20, 16, 21, 4, 79. So 79 divided by 50 is 1.58. Now, just to show you on your calculator, remind you, we did this on the calculator the other day, stat, arrow over to calc, and it's still a one variable statistic because we're still dealing with just X as the only variable, even though we have a frequency list. And remember, so list 1 is my data value, and list 2 happens to be my frequencies, and then I hit calculate, and 1.58. I get the exact same thing. So, all right, so now we're going to find the standard deviation of grouped data. So that's why I went ahead and put it in my calculator. In this case, I want to do X. We're using the exact same data, so I'm going to do X minus X bar. So now, remember, this is doing it by hand. Those are quotes for those of you who are at home, doing it by hand. We're going to use our calculator, but we're writing out the process as opposed to just hitting one button. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, minus 1.58, etc. So in my calculator, I'm going to go to my stat list, and I'm going to go over to list 4, and I'm going to do X, which was in list 1, so second list 1 minus 1.58, and there are my data values, and I can just fill them in. So I'll write them in a different color so you can see negative 1.58, negative 0.58, 0.42, 1.42, 2.42. Okay, so reminder what that is. That's the distance between my data value and the mean. Now I need to square that so that they'll all be positive. So I'm going to arrow up to list 5. And I'm going to tell my calculator that I want it to square list 4. So ELF second 4 gives me L4, and I want to square that. Now I can copy all of that into this column. And however you want to round, we talked about before, if you'll just leave the data values in your calculator all the way through the process, then we'll round at the very end. So just however many you can fit. I usually go with 3 or 4 decimal places. I want my final answer to have at least 3. The more decimal places you have, the more accurate your answer is. But the AP statistics exam, which I know we're not taking, but the AP statistics exam requires 3, so that's usually what I do. All right, so now I'm going to go to L6 because I need to take what I just did, the square, and multiply it by the frequency, which, reminder, our frequency was in list 2. There's my frequency, the 11, 28, and 7 column, so that's list 2. So I need to do list 5 times list 2. So list 5 times list 2, and I can write those in this column. So I'm sure I showed you at some point, but just a quick reminder too, that the calculator is holding data values that it won't show on the window necessarily. So if you look, this one, 2, 3, I did. We're almost the same, so 14, 5, 6, 4. So for example, on this first one where it says 27.46, that's all that fits in the window. If you look down here, you can see the actual 27.4604. So it's got more data values being stored in the calculator than it can actually show in the window. All right, now we need to sum that. So if you remember, second in mode takes you back to the main screen. Second stat, arrow to math, number 5. And I need to sum that last list that I had, which was list 6. So sum list 6. And I get 114.18. So sum is 114.18. Now we need to divide. That's the sum of squares. So that's my sum of squares is 114.18. I need to divide that by the number of data points, which is our frequency, so 50. And I get, that's your, what we call your variation, so that's S squared, 2.2836, and then take the absolute value, I don't know, I said that, take the square root, and I get 1.511. So, now that, now obviously I used my calculator, but technically that's the by hand version. So now the calculator stuff, they want you to hit, you fill in stat lists. So the first thing you're going to do is fill in your stat lists. Then you're going to hit stat, arrow right, that's an arrow, calc, 1, and then make sure input lists for data and frequency, and then calculate. And when you do, you'll see that right here, there's my standard deviation, 1.511. This is exactly what we got when we did it by hand. All right, there you go.